All right, one of the other stories that we're tracking for you this week, Zimbabwe is holding its general election this coming Wednesday. That's, of course, August the 23rd. And some citizens working in South Africa eager to go back home to vote. Let's cross now to SABC News reporter on the ground, Mahlatse Phaladi, who is stationed at the Beitbridge border post. That's between, of course, South Africa and Zimbabwe. Mahlatse, good morning to you. Thanks indeed for your time. It looks relatively quiet where you are. Perhaps you'll be able to paint a picture for us of the atmosphere. Are the Zimbabwean citizens making their way across that border in anticipation for Wednesday's election?
Yes, very good morning, Griselda. Indeed, it's quite relatively quiet here at the Beitbridge border post. We actually even arrived an hour before, and not much traffic as one would have anticipated, but mainly because it is still 2 days left towards the election. Maybe that's why some of them are still getting ready, Griselda, to make way to Zimbabwe. Let me also tell you, Griselda, that when we arrived here this morning, we actually managed to interact with some of the Zimbabweans who are actually going to make way back to their home country. And I have to say, we got quite a mixed reaction in that regard. Some of the Zimbabweans which we managed to interact with from this side of Beitbridge actually saying that they are not actually going to go home and vote. And this is something that we found quite interesting, as some of them are saying they actually don't see the need to actually go to the other side of Beitbridge to actually, the other side in Zimbabwe to actually start with the voting. But with me, Griselda, I'm joined by one particular gentleman who is actually on his way to Zimbabwe as we speak to actually go and prepare to cast the vote on Wednesday. And I'm just going to speak to him now. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking to us. Kindly start with your name and surname.
Fine. I'm C. Guy.
Okay. You were on your way back to your home country to cast your vote. Tell us, having to go there and decide ultimately the government that will rule Zimbabwe, what's your general feeling around that?
Me, as one who respects what God says, we are very thankful for what have been done by President Mnangagwa. We have done our roads and with the border posts, but God gave him chance to do so. So if he wills to give me another chance, it's okay. We are only, as Christians, we should respect what God has given us. That's all. If he gives us another party, it's according to his will. We don't have to say no to what is.
We know that the situation in Zimbabwe when it comes to election is quite tense. You have been the citizen of Zimbabwe yourself. Perhaps tell us about the general feeling when it comes to election in Zimbabwe. How is it from your point of view as a citizen? How is the general security, the general view when these kind of national elections are happening in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, as a child of both parties, that we should respect it, because if a child doesn't misbehave, sometimes you will be given a whip. You know what is this? When you have your own house, but you should place it in order. If they say we should not do this, we should not do that. That's all. Because for a child to say what you are doing is not even wrong, I think it's not correct. Because we've got the President Mnangagwa, who is an elder person. We've got Shamisa, who wants to be, maybe we are of the same age. Maybe the instruction which I give to aid on what Shamisa is doing is just to say you should not go and mock all those elders doing what is not wrong. He should have his own way of campaigning, likely not to mock those elders. Because if you mock those elders, all those elders, some other elders will also join in. Yeah, that's way. But the idea is correct. He wants to also get into the power, so he should go nicely and say, "No, I want to do this for Zimbabweans," so that no violence will include or will separate the ways or will harm other people.
Maybe let's talk about whichever government becomes the ruling party. What will you, as generally expect from that ruling party? What are some of the changes that you will expect them to implement in your country?
To implement in my country, I think it's, hospitals. What else? Hospital, good roads, as it is. That now, some parts, maybe, and the value of our money. That's all.
All right. No, thank you very much and good luck. This is one of the citizens who will be traveling to Zimbabwe, Griselda, to actually start, preparing to cast their vote on Wednesday. It's quite scorching here in Musina, one have to say, Griselda. And when we try to engage some of the other citizens here who are going back to Zimbabwe, one have to say there was quite a reluctancy, to speak to us as the media, and we are just fortunate enough that this one particular gentleman actually agreed to talk to us. Earlier on, I spoke about some of the Zimbabwean Griselda who are actually having mixed feelings, and I'm actually joined by one particular guy here who actually told us that he does not actually.
Okay.
All right, we apologize for that break in transmission there. Of course, struggling with a bit of the signal in that area. My colleague, Mahlatse Phaladi, who is speaking to some Zimbabweans who are headed from South Africa to Zimbabwe to participate in Wednesday's election, is trying to get an array of a comment there from different individuals and what their sense is of the election. You would know, of course, as well, that there had been some reports of some NGOs, that had been restricted and told that they cannot be part of the election process in that particular country. But we'll certainly, over the next couple of days, probably hear from election observers and other organizations that have been deployed to be part of that election about how the elections in Zimbabwe, of course, proceed. Emmerson Mnangagwa, of course, the president of Zimbabwe at this particular stage, of course, him looking to retain that particular presidency in Zimbabwe. We'll certainly hear from our colleague. We hope perhaps to speak to him a little bit later on. It will be great to get some views on from the various Zimbabweans and how they feel about the polls taking place on Wednesday.